Señoritas y señores, bienvenidos a otro video número 8 para la clase de español nivel número 3. ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo están? Yo soy tu profesor, señor Barbosa. Aquí estoy otra vez para enseñarles más español. Deben de saber ya todas las palabras del vocabulario para el capítulo 2A. Por ejemplo, usando palabras como haciendo las pinturas y tratando de comunicar sus sentimientos a través del mundo del arte, los movimientos, las fuentes de inspiración, pintando un autorretrato y pintando figuras que están en el fondo y también en el primer plano, etcétera, etcétera, etcétera. And I hope you guys got most of that. Okay, so that's all. If that sounds familiar to you, then hopefully it is, and it should be, because that's your Chapter 2A vocabulary, all right? So if you're kind of fuzzy on that, go back one video, go down the list, and try to remember what all of those words and phrases mean, because we'll be still using our vocabulary for the rest of Chapter 2A. All right, in this video, it's the grammar section of Chapter 2A, preterite versus imperfect, when to use one, when to use the other. Also, something called estar plus participle. Many adjectives in Spanish are actually past participles of verbs, actions that have been completed. All right, and that's the goal of this video. So let's get to it, clase. Let's fire up the computadora, and I want you to follow me over here, and let's learn some more Spanish together. Here we go. All right, señoritas y señores, so let's take a look at, what are you guys looking at? Oh, preterite versus imperfect. And I actually was able to take a snapshot out of the libro. I think the book explains it the best. I seen some PowerPoints roaming around the internet, and I actually tried to make a PowerPoint myself about this, but believe it or not, if you take a look at page 76, página 76 in your textbook, this is the most comprehensive guide as to when to use the preterite, when to use the imperfect, and those are both past tense conjugations in the Spanish language. All right. Take a look at this little box on top of the yellow box on page 76. This is recuerdas. Do you remember? That's what that means. Do you remember? Las expresiones como generalmente, a menudo y muchas veces se usan frecuentemente en frases que tienen verbos en el imperfecto. What that means, if you use phrases in Spanish such as generalmente, generally, a menudo, often, and muchas veces, a lot of times, that's your clue. Those are keywords and phrases that will give it away that your verbs are in the imperfect tense. Take a look at the second sentence. Las expresiones como ayer, la semana pasada y una vez se usan en frases que llevan verbos en el pretérito. Let me translate. Once again, if you're using expressions such as ayer, which means yesterday, la semana pasada, which means last week, and una vez, one time, those are dead giveaways. Dead giveaways that your phrases or sentences will be in the preterite tense. All right, so if you're able to keep those in mind, then I think you can decipher, you can find out when exactly to use one or the other. So let's just read it from the top and just work our way down. Here we go. When speaking about the past, you can use either the preterite or the imperfect tense, depending on the sentence and the meaning you want to convey. Take a look at this example. Let's see here. There it is. Este fin de semana tomé una clase de cerámica. Cuando era niño, tomaba clases de escultura. So this past weekend, I took a ceramics class. When I was a kid, I used to take sculpture classes. So look at our verbs that are in bold. Tomé, preterite, era, imperfect, tomaba, imperfect. All right? So again, it all depends on what exactly you want to convey in Español. Here's the first criteria when to use the preterite. Use the preterite to tell about past actions that happened and are complete. El sábado, la clase empezó a las 10 de la mañana. Saturday, class started at 10 a.m. in the morning. That sounds pretty finite to me. That sounds like it's case closed. Use the imperfect tense to tell all about habitual actions in the past. Cuando era niño, las clases empezaban a las 5 de la tarde. When I was a kid, classes started at 5 p.m. Again, it was a repeated class, and when I was a kid, that's when you would use the imperfect tense. Use the preterite to give a sequence of actions in the past. Cuando llegamos, la profesora sacó su pintura y sus pinceles y empezó a pintar. All of these verbs are in the preterite, but they're all one after another. That's when you would use the preterite tense. Okay, moving our way back here. Use the imperfect to give background details such as time, location, weather, mood, age, and physical and mental descriptions. Eran las 2 de la tarde. Estábamos en el parque. Era un día de otoño, autumn. Otoño means autumn. Todos estábamos muy contentos. We were all very happy. All right, so notice that the imperfect describes all of these things that you see. Use the preterite and the imperfect together. Yes, you can double up. You can double these up in the same sentence. Here's the first example. When an action, preterite, interrupts another that is taking place in the past. Imperfect. Estábamos en el taller cuando entró el profesor. So we were in the workshop when the professor or the teacher entered. So this is imperfect. This is preterite, which interrupted this. Okay. And then finally, in your libro, it says use the imperfect when 2 or more actions are taking place simultaneously in the past. Mientras los niños pintaban, el profesor observaba las pinturas. All right. Oh, okay, so I see. What it says here is use the imperfect, so not using both. So the only time when you would use them together, according to the libro, would be when an action interrupts another action. So it's this right over here. They should have put that one last, if you want my honest opinion. Oh well. But that is a overview as to when to use the preterite tense and when to use the imperfect tense. And I think a good idea when we practice in class is to keep your book open to página 76, page 76. And that way you'll have all of when to use one or the other in front of you while you're working on activities or out of the workbook. All right. Okay, the next lesson that we have here is something called estar plus participio. And what that means is estar plus participle. You're talking about actions that are probably completed or conditions that have existed already. All right. Many adjectives in Spanish are actually past participles of verbs. Now, don't let the title fool you. Once you get the formula down, once I explain to you how to formulate the estar plus participle formula, then you'll pick up on it really easy, and it'll be easier than it sounds right now. All right. Recall, hopefully you've gone over this in Spanish too. If not, then we'll have to retrace our steps. To form a past participle, you add ado to the root of AR ending verbs, sometimes ada, and ido to the root of ER and IR ending verbs, sometimes it's ida, depending on the gender of what you're talking about. And then, of course, if it's plural, then you add an S to ado or ido, sometimes ada or ida. Okay? So remember that decorar, if something's been decorated already, it's decorado or decorada. All right? Conocer is conocido or conocida. Preferir, preferido or preferida. So again, remember that Spanish infinitive verbs always end in AR, ER, and IR, and these are what you need to do in order for you to have the correct participle part, okay? The past participle is frequently used with estar to describe conditions that are the result of a previous action. That's the whole point of this. In those cases, the past participle agrees with the subject in gender and number. Very important, señoritas y señores, in Spanish, especially when using estar plus participio, this particular lesson, you gotta line up your numbers and you gotta line up your genders. Because if you don't, then it's grammatically incorrect. El pintor está sentado. Okay, the painter's sitting down or has been seated. Look at this. El pintor, that's a dude. If you were saying la pintora, a girl, then it would be la pintora está sentada with an A, describing la pintora. But in this case, It's a masculine singular noun that we're describing, and your participle has to be masculine and singular too. Okay. What if it was a group of painters? What if it was los pintores? Then this is what you would have to say. Los pintores están sentados, with an S at the end of sentado, because again, you've got to line up your numbers and genders in Spanish. All right. Take a look at the next example. Las paredes, the walls, estaban pintadas. They were painted. Look at this. It's pintadas. Pintadas. It's not pintado. It's not pintada. It's not pintados. Pintadas. Why? Because las paredes, feminine, plural. Your participle word has to be feminine, plural. It's all got to match up in Spanish. All right. Sometimes, some cases of participles, they are irregulares. So watch out. So for example, if you want to say that something is open, you don't follow the formula above for an IR ending verb. Like you wouldn't take abrir and then drop the IR and say abrido. You wouldn't do that. Instead, you would have to say abierto. Okay? Let's take a look at romper, which means to break or to rip. Look at this. You wouldn't say rompido a lot of times. You would say roto. Although I have heard some people say rompido, but roto is the version that we should stick with here. Roto, okay? Poner. It's an ER ending verb. I know what you want to do. You want to drop the ER and put ponido, but guess what? That's not it. You have to say puesto in Spanish. All right? Hacer. Again, it's an ER ending verb. Your first instinct is to say ha sido. Nope. That's not it. Hecho. Hecho. Decir. Decido? Nope. Dicho. Dicho. Okay. Ver. Veído? Nope. Visto. Visto. Resolver. Look at this one. Resolvido? Resuelto. Resuelto. Morir, does that change into morido? No way. Muerto. Muerto. Escribir. Escrito? Not exactly. Wait, no, that was right. Holy smokes. No, it's wrong if you say escribido. You have to say escrito in Spanish. And then finally, volver. Don't say volvido in Spanish. Say vuelto. Okay? I do have a PowerPoint for this particular lesson. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but I do need to show you a couple of key slides here. To form a past participle with AR ending verbs, remember, drop the AR, replace it with ADO. If your infinitive, your Spanish infinitive ends in ER or IR, make sure that you replace it with IDO, okay? But again, these are the ones that are irregulares, so you cannot do this with these ones that you see right here, okay? They have their own rules and they have to be memorized. There's no other way for you to get these down. It's all going to be up here in your noodle, but the more you practice, then the more you'll have a good feel as to when you do this as opposed to doing this. You got that? All right. And I believe that is all for video número 8. Lots of information to take in. Well, after all, La Clase de Español, it's a Spanish 3 honors class, and I know that you guys, once in a while like to see a little video here and there that I show you in class, but the truth is, Spanish 3 honors gets a bit more tough, and it builds on previous things we learned in the past. So if you haven't been paying attention, or if you haven't been putting in your work since the beginning of the school year, I hate to burst your bubble, but you are setting yourself up to fall real hard toward the end of the semester, because it only gets tougher and tougher and tougher. So at any time, go back to my YouTube channel, go back and watch video number 1 and work your way back up if you have to. All right, because Spanish 3 honors is difícil, and it gets more difícil as time goes on. So just be careful and just make sure that you make time for Spanish. What do I always tell you? How important is it to you? If it's important, you'll find a way. But if not, you'll find an excuse. That is it, señoritas y señores. I am going home. Whoa, look at that. It's late. And I think there might be a hot dinner waiting for me. I hope there is. You know, we'll find out. But I got to go because I've been here for too long. We'll practice en la clase de español. And thank you once again for subscribing to this channel and, of course, doing your tarea. Don't forget to sign in and comment for your points. This is Señor Barbosa. I am out of here, señoritas y señores. I will see you en la clase de español de Cristi. Nos vemos.